This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Benjamin Owen says many people are letting an inner enemy hold them back from full success in business and life. He says success begins when one realizes this and takes actions to surmount it. Ben Owen joins us in this episode of Biz News Interviews to talk about inner obstacles to success and ways to overcome them. Ben, tell us about what you call the inner saboteur. I've envisioned some sort of bomber inside my stomach, but that's after a bad meal.
It is, yeah. It's even worse than that, Douglas. It's the part of you that is there to quote unquote F your life up. You know, really, it's there. It's a part of you that's there to meet your force for growth. So, for example, you're a guy. You obviously had a big impact in your life. You said you've been in TV for 50 years. Is that right?
More or less.
Okay, so you've got a real drive inside you every single morning to get up and make an impact on the world. And what the inner saboteur or there's the opposing force that's there to meet you with resistance every day. So, for example, if you're a creative watching this, if you're a songwriter who wants to write a song, if you're a person who wants to start a business, you have all these wants and desires in your life, but you're met with resistance. And this resistance shows up in many ways, and we can get into that if you want to. But so I didn't realize this until I really got deep into self-study over the last 15 years and helping executives, lawyers, barristers work out what was getting in their way, because there wasn't anything external getting in their way. It was often themselves. So when I helped them see that the biggest obstacles and resistance that they had to meet every day was their own inner enemy, if you wish, it gave them a lot of power. It gave them a lot of personal power, because they're like, oh, right, well, if it's inside me, I can actually wage a much more fair war, if you wish.
So is there one particular one you identify that immediately and you say, aha, there it is, I've seen that a dozen times? Or is it different with every person?
Good question. So what happens in a moment, so like let's just strip it back, is that if you want to think of this like spiritual physics, so Newton's third law, the law of motion, every force has an equal and opposing force. So if you've got a big force for growth, you're going to have a big resistance, and that resistance will show up in different ways for different people. You are right. So for you, Douglas, so say you have an idea and you want to put it out in the world, you could be met with a crippling victim narrative. And that you're not good enough, you don't know what you're doing, that you're not clever enough, you're not smart enough, it didn't work out last time, and that could be just something that your brain hangs on to, and it stops you from moving forward. So that could be one for some people.
How do you tell people to get over that? Do you have any advice for things like that?
Yeah, I do. It's good that we're talking about this now, because the first thing with part X, the inner enemy, we call it the part X. Yeah, I've heard it referenced in different personal development material as in the chimp paradox. It's called the chimp. In Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield, it's called the resistance. But it's just labeling it and saying, I see you for what you really are. And, this is you, this is my inner part of me that is there to stop me from moving forwards every single day. And just labeling it is the first place to start, really.
Ben, did that happen to you, and how did you overcome it?
It was seemingly, I didn't realize until I was in my 30s how much I'd let my inner enemy ruin my life, like doing seemingly dumb things when I'm in a moment where I had an opportunity for growth. And yeah, it would be something like, I was a track athlete, I was an elite track athlete, and I would go out and drink alcohol the night before a race. or I would lose my temper with a family member at a moment where I most needed to connect with them. And so it showed up in different ways for me, and it can be big or small. And a lot of people would reference this as self-sabotage. And so what I realized is that there's one real desire for part X, which is to close down your potential. So say there's a potential for your life to grow and change. Part X will be there to shut it down. Your inner saboteur will be there to shut it down and stop you from moving forwards.
You'd like to know how we all got those little inner saboteurs. We never saw them coming in, did we?
It's just, no, yeah, it's a good observation because, I consciously would have said I didn't do that. I said, my coach said to me one day, "Ben, I think you self-sabotage." I was like, no, I don't self-sabotage. I wouldn't willingly do something to stop me from moving forwards. And he said, well, and he pointed out these various things that I did, not paying attention to detail, hanging on to needless emotions, playing the victim card for far too long. And I was realized like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I do self-sabotage. And in observing this and doing the work that was required to see it in myself, I started seeing it in my clients, in the people around me. And when you become cognizant of it, you realize it's running, a great majority of your decisions, actions, and behaviors in the day.
You are associated with something called the Awakened Man Project. What on earth does that mean?
Wow. Yeah. So it's nothing to be about being woke. It's about it's about men awakening to their potential. So men are sleepwalking through their life, and they sometimes live a life where they haven't connected with the people around them. They haven't lived up to their true potential. They're full of regrets and opportunities that they've missed because they've played the lone wolf card. And men weren't designed to be in a lone wolf situation. We were designed to be pack animals. And post-pandemic, it's even worse. So I was feeling pretty lonely. And I got divorced when I was about 30 years old. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel that I needed any kind of counseling, or I definitely needed some mentorship, and I definitely needed some brotherhood. And I looked for men's groups, but there were a lot of men's groups that just didn't fit what I was looking for. I love talking about money. I love business. I love growth. I love personal development. And a lot of the guys that I met on these other men's groups were quite counterculture, anti-establishment men. And I thought, you know what? I can't find it, so I'll create it. So I created the Awaken Man Project in the pandemic, and we had guys just like saying, "I want to join. I want to be part of this." So yeah, it's been very successful.
How do people get more information about that?
It's a good question. Is if they go over to awakenman.org, awakenedman.org, it's we started out as just a small men's group, and we wanted to see what was going to happen. But now we've created a movement of men. We're growing, and we've got something called Heroic Man and Awakened Man. And every single day we meet and we study together. And this is purely for men. And it's so powerful. Like, just before this call today, Douglas, I was listening to a voice note on my phone about a man who had stepped in and had a good conversation with his partner, inspired by other men in the group. Guys are getting together, and the medicine is them sharing and pushing and challenging one another. It's really powerful.
Is this in person or online or a combination?
It's all online. We do have in-person meetups because we love to get together and meet with the guys, because it's great to be, you'll know yourself. Sometimes you just get around the guys. It's great. But we created it because we're so passionate, Pete and myself, and you see my mentor and coach and business partner, is that we're deeply passionate about men sharing the things that are challenging them in their lives and often holding them back from the businesses and relationships that they they believe to be possible. So yeah, it's entirely online. So we've got clients all over the world, from Dubai to Europe to Canada. We've had clients all over.
What has been some of the, I guess you'd call them success stories or something like that, without naming people specifically? Can you give us some examples?
I can, yeah. Well, one man managed to buy himself his dream home just a couple of weeks ago. So when he came to me, he was doing really well. We work with successful guys, but he felt like he was just managing his business, and he said, I've got a much deeper purpose from this than for me myself than this, and I want to find out what my purpose is. Anyway, he opened up a second business, coaching, just doing what I do. And he was able this year, not only did he cross 6 figures in his coaching business this year, he bought his first dream family home, which has got a big garden for his son. And, his son's, needs a lot of space. He's an energetic, 5-year-old, and he just needed that space, which was just amazing to hear. We've had guys have multiple promotions. They've joined us, and then because they've been challenged and pushed, they've gone through not just like one promotion. But one guy, after just a 20-minute phone call with me, he walked into his boss's office and got a double promotion. So it's everything from guys raising enough money to pay court battles to get their kids back, to men just reconnecting with their parents, to having deep connection with their spouse. So it's really powerful.
Ben, what got you into this line of work? You've been at it, what, 15 or so years?
Yeah, I own a gym. So I was quite fortunate. I was very, very emotionally intelligent as a young man. Like, I started in personal development at 16, 15 years old, and I started in body transformation, and I hired a little consultation room at the side of my gym. It was just about £200 a month. And I used to sit and talk to people like yourself, Douglas, who would come in. So I'd have guys who were 85, 90 years old, all the way down to guys 18 years old, and they were wanting to change their bodies. And I would just sit with them for an extended period of time and really learn about their situation. And I just found that just sitting with people and understanding their personal situation and what their goals and dreams were was so transformational. And I did that for about 10 years. And I found that I wasn't just talking about calories and food. I was talking about dreams and wishes and things that people wanted to achieve. And this was coaching, but I wasn't charging for it. And
there's a business model many people have.
Yeah, it was like, I was doing the work. I loved the craft. Professional consulting was my jam. I loved and enjoyed it immensely. And I just loved hearing about what people wanted to achieve with their lives and giving them the tools to do that. So that's where it started. But then when I got married when I was 28, and the relationship wasn't right, there was a lot of unsaid emotions, we didn't express in the relationship. For example, I used to pride myself on having a relationship where there was no conflict, and then there was one conflict and it was over. So I realized that I was scared of having conflict and hard conversations. I hadn't really grown up as a man. I hadn't been through some sort of initiation. Like, I hadn't really understood my relationship with my parents wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I wanted to go and find all that stuff out, and I couldn't find it. So this is what got me into men's work. And so men's work is where men learn how to do that from other men. So yeah, it was a powerful experience.
At this point, we need to know, how can people get in touch with you? You have a website, I understand?
Yeah. So the easiest way to find us is we've got a podcast called Awaken Man Podcast. So the Awaken Man Podcast is the fastest growing men's development podcast in the UK, if not the world. Well, that's the goal. And then we've also got menspod.com, which takes you to a Facebook group where we have a conversation. But for those of you who are on Instagram, Coach Benjamin Owen, I reply to messages on there. I'm very active, and I'm growing my Instagram to share my message with the world. So.
You've been listening to the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. That's bizgnus.com. Thanks for listening.